All right, welcome to Grungbob's Fortnightly podcast. This is the third edition. Today we have a very exciting individual with us. I cannot say enough about his personality and his playing, of course. I have had the good fortune of sharing a stage with Mr. Raman Iyer over here. And I am super glad that he took this chance to actually come through. He drove from a really far away part of town, and you know how Bangalore traffic is. So first of all, Mr. Raman, thank you for actually doing this. And the introduction for this man right here is actually going to be so epic and big that I will have to read. So excuse me about that. I will now introduce our guest for today, but before that, I would like for all of you, I would like to thank all of you to actually join me in this journey that I'm on with the podcast. I am super grateful for you guys to be listening to and watching this right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go ahead and without wasting any further time, I'm going to introduce Mr. Raman Iyer. Mr. Raman is a musician and social worker. He's a certified counselor for mental health and substance de-addiction. He has a Master's of Science, an M.Sc in International Events and Conferences Management from Sheffield, Hallen, UK. He also has finished a Berkeley Saxophone Method Course and multiple workshops and diplomas across the world. He has played and shared the stage with the likes of The Drifters, which had Mr. Nagaraj, Gerard Machado, jazz guitarist from India, Jeremy Spencer of Fleetwood Mac, Joe Cocker in multiple pubs in England. He has also played ISKCON venues in England, Scotland, Nepal, and many other countries. Mr. Raman has been playing instruments since about 1975 is when he started his journey as a live musician. So after playing for 15 years, he took a break and for personal reasons, in which also he set up a preschool called The Child. Moving on from there, he also set up a antique items business. This was a time in Mr. Raman's life where he was doing other things apart from music, which he's going to tell us about further into the podcast. He's going to tell us what led him to make those decisions. It's going to give us an insight into the life of a musician who has survived over 4.5 decades into the industry, which is ever changing, ever evolving. So the moment he came back in 1999, I believe, in the last 22 years, he has played 4,000 shows, a whopping 4,000 shows. He's right now a part of the rock and roll band Strange Brew, headed by BPL Ajit Nambiar. And he has also co-founded the Jazz Revivals in the year 2000 with Dr. Thomas Chandy. I am super glad to have you here. And
thank you, Jitesh.
Would just like to begin with asking you, how are you doing today?
Today I'm fine. Yes, good. Yes, as good as circumstances permit and as good as we. Actually, there's a saying which says, you feel as good as you make up your mind to be. So
that is a very positive way to approach things. Whenever I usually get in touch with you, you are a very busy man in the sense of always having shows. So that's a great thing. A lot of musicians aspire to be at a level where they are busy, right? And busy in a good way, in the sense that music can take you in a lot of directions per se. In fact, any profession can take you in a lot of directions. Some directions are ones that you do not want to go in, but are led to by circumstance. At this point, I just want to ask you, the performances, the gigs that you are doing at the moment, are you deriving an amount of life satisfaction from what you are and where you are at the moment?
Yeah, invariably it's good. I think about 95% of the events that I play in, the gigs that I do, the recordings or the concerts that I do, they're also satisfying from a musical level and from an existential level also.
Right.
Because what happens as you grow older, or perhaps in my case at least, I found that as I've grown older, you start also realizing that there are other things that support this platform, There are so many people. For example, you go to a show, you hardly think of those poor guys who are working from the morning to, set up the sound, and you just take it for granted. But when you actually look around, and what about the people who host you? They go through a lot of stuff to bring their friends or, their clientele or their audiences together. So it's a beautiful network, a lot of stakeholders. So as long as I realize that I'm just part of this whole, I think the satisfaction is much greater.
That is awesome to hear. I believe a lot of young musicians are watching you and listening to you at this point, or will, and I hope they get to learn from your journey. I would just ask you the questions that I have curated for you. Since I've known you, I know you as Mr. Saxophone Player Raman. And I think most of Bangalore knows you as Mr. Saxophone Player. So was saxophone your first instrument that you picked up?
Not really, because when I was about 12 or 13, I heard my grandmother singing some bhajans at home. And she had this beautiful German harmonium, very beautiful tone. So one day she was singing and I told her, can I accompany you? So she sang some notes and I was able to, follow her almost to the T. And then she commented, hey, you have a musical talent. And my father had studied a little bit of sitar and tabla in Calcutta in those days. My mother had studied little veena in those days. So, I was influenced by all this. But yes, the harmonium was the first instrument that I played. Then when I was in school, Bishop Cotton's, I used to play tunes. Play the lead guitar for all these old Ventures tunes and all that. That was the rage then. And also I've started playing bass guitar, which I took up as a profession actually in the year 1977, I think, till about 80 I was playing that. And 80 I decided to change over to saxophone.
Right. So that is when that's when the magic happened. What inspired you to pick up the saxophone? Was there any particular artist you saw perform or were inspired by?
Okay, see, at home, my dad used to play a lot of, things like Paul Marriott and, Dave Brubeck, Paul Desmond, and, many others, orchestral saxophones, and not much jazz really, but more popular music. And it had its own appeal. And in our school, Bishop Cotton, there was this fantastic music teacher called Bruce Gabriel. He was a very good choir master, band leader, etc. But his first instrument was saxophone. And when he played it, you just wanted to keep on listening, So
Right.
That's the early influences.
Right. So you are the third person that I have invited for the podcast today. And from what I've seen from the other two people's experiences as well, is that people who get into music at a younger age have a better chance to, let's use the word ripen by the right time. I do not want to imply that there is a right time to do music or a wrong time, but I just mean to say that they have a better grasp and understanding. Would you say there are any negative aspects to starting music at an early age? Because I have heard of the notion that sometimes when it comes to you too easy, and you stop respecting it. And a lot of people got into music at a later age and it came to them really difficult, in a very difficult manner. Like their parents wouldn't allow them to get trained in music, and parents wouldn't recognize their talents or just probably ignore their talent to put them into another field, like an engineering field or any other field. So would you say there are any downsides to learning music at a young age?
See, this is an ongoing debate all over the world. Like, when you read about, leading brain researchers like Dr. Hallen, Yang, and, that kind of, the theorists, they have proved through scientific and logical methods, evidence-based methods, that when children learn music, especially reading, writing, and playing, and being wholesome with it, trying to be musicians, they invariably perform much better in their studies. There's something to do with the right brain, left brain. That's first thing. Second thing is, I've seen my own daughter study for her dental exams, listening to music, and I was wondering how she did that. But she used to score 90, 92 and all that in school, and later on also she scored very high marks. So this is one thing. Second thing is, you see, as you know, the human brain is a universal brain all over the world, and studies have shown that during your developmental stage, especially after your adolescence, say from 12, 13, once you start from there and go on till 21, this is when actually your brain and your mind develops in a certain direction. So if you have a talent in music and you start playing music at a young age, people invariably say, hey, that's a talent, Or if you're good in mathematics, they'll say, hey, this guy is very brainy. Or, whatever else. Someone is good in painting, that will be appreciated. So this happens, Society encourages that.
Right.
But like you said, the parents might not be so encouraging, because they want the son or daughter to be a doctor, or engineer, dentist, or, whatever else. And in my times, it was very strong, that bias, towards being a musician. Although a relative of mine owned a very big studio in Chennai, in Madras. In those days, they were very big film producers. They had a very big music industry happening around them, and, because of them. But my father, who was a chartered accountant, was never really for this idea. He used to say, keep it as a hobby.
Yeah.
So you see, this is when, on one hand, your brain is developing your musical ideations and, mentations, and your mentality is going towards the arts, which is very right brain. But suddenly you get criticism, or you get barriers to that learning. So what happens is you start getting a crisis there, in your mind. Your mind experiences identity crisis. And luckily for me, my mother was very supportive. She said, okay, go play music. And, so that's been my experience, which I have also researched a lot on the subject.
Okay.
And
that's a valuable lesson, I guess, in the sense that a lot of parents aren't supportive. So, and also another thing is the whole perspective with which I asked you this question was, many a time when children are put into, for the most part, classical music education, in the Indian classical, it's a very rigid form of learning. An adult can perceive goals better than a child. And to be given a lot of ragas and to be given a strict time has an impact on a child, where they develop to start getting annoyed by a musical activity in general.
That is true, actually. But then again, we can't really generalize, because there are many kids who might be operating under the family is a social unit, and maybe others in the families have done that. Maybe their cousins did that. Maybe their uncles did that. So they say, okay, it's part of growing up. So let me also do it. But I don't want to be a Carnatic musician or a Hindustani musician. They just go through the, they go through the motions, so to say. Yes.
So I believe it's to each their own.
Yes.
How they perceive it, and it has a lot to do with the parenting. It has a lot to do with how much pressure you're putting on the kid to do that. So yeah, that I think that settles that. So yeah, it's good to know that you got into music pretty early and then went through stages with different instruments until you picked up the saxophone.
Yes.
Which is what you primarily play now.
Yes.
So my next question to you, up and coming, is that you've played live shows, with a little break, of course, for over 4.5 decades now. It's safe to say that.
With a 15-year break, yes.
With a 15-year break.
Yeah.
But you came back. So I would just say that you have been a musician who survived the industry for 4.5 decades now. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your journey? I know that it's a very open question, but maybe you can give us some highlights about your journey, about what changed with the era and the generations.
Okay, yes. See, going back to this thing about family, from there if I start, see, parents don't have to agree with everything children say. Neither children have to agree with everyone. But it would have been wiser for a parent who is not supportive to ask, okay, you want to do music. What do you want to do with music? Rather than making the child a rebel and say, I will do it for the sake of being a rebel, no? And grow long hair and wear John Lennon specs and all. See, that is a very...
You have long hair still.
Yeah, I still have long hair. So what happens is, but that is a very negative kind of entry,
Yeah.
It's kind of a backdoor kind of entry, which I don't encourage people to do now.
Especially, I had that entry too.
Yeah, so you had that. So you can identify, you can understand what I'm saying. But coming to this, see, the first years, like say 10 years, what I did was I was playing music. I used to play the guitar. I used to play some nightclubs and some weddings and, receptions and some dances that used to happen in those days. And all of that was fine. And then I had a relative, like I was saying, in Chennai, in Madras, who had a very big music studio, very well known people, very, very top of their game in the southern Indian and Indian music and cinema industry. And there was a chance for me to actually go there and sit down with them and, go through the motions of learning about film music and this and that. But like I said, you already have a rebellious attitude. That's not going to really help you to get into the system.
Right.
So the parents can actually help a child to not be rebellious, but do what they want with a very rational frame of mind, so that you attract everything that you need to attract in order to, showcase your talents at much higher levels.
True, that is very true.
Yes. So what happened was, Jitesh, I was playing all this, and then suddenly one day I got bored up, and then I said, no, this is really not much happening. Going in the same circles, and I missed a chance also to going to New York and studying. There was some family, the family wanted me to go, but personally, I was not so keen. I didn't want to leave my ancestral home, and I had a nice life going. That is the thing. And then what happened was I stopped playing music totally. And for about the next 15, 14 years, I dedicated myself to, bringing up my mother's small little nursery school, very subsistence type of thing, into a proper, fully functional daycare center, because I had done a business management course, which has stood me in good stead in music also, business management. I think every musician should do at least one diploma in music management. And
that is good advice.
Yes, business management, to know how to, survive and grow. See, the thing is about the growth is such an important thing. So what happened, I found I was not growing. So I came out of that thing, and then I thought, okay, I'll do music if it's supposed to be. But right now, I want to make money and, be established in society as a responsible person. So what I did was, this nursery school happened, and among others, Deepika Padikone studied there, and so many other luminaries who have gone into this world from our school, and we are proud of that achievement. Yes, and my mother must have taught at least about 5,000 to 6,000, maybe even 7,000 kids in that 30 years she was in the nursery business. And I'm very proud to have been part of that. Then I slowly started getting an interest in antiques, which was encouraged by my father. So one day what happens is, I go to a place and I see this beautiful saxophone.
Yeah.
So what I do, the first thing is, I ask him how much, and I go home, and he said, no, take this sax and go, and I take it with his people, go home, pay him the money, and then I started practicing, and I just left it there. And another antique dealer came to my house, and he said, whose sax is that? I said, that is mine. Oh, do you play it? And I just played a little bit for him. He went and told his cousin, whom I knew from the past.
Okay.
He was a hotel musician at that time. He had migrated to foreign lands and all that, and I was still here. And that guy wanted me to join him. So in 1999, this happened, and ever since I've been back to music. Okay. And that antiques and all carried on for some time. But primarily, I've been a musician, back to music, paying income tax as a musician, and all of that, and earned quite a good amount of money, a little bit of recognition, and met a lot of people, traveled quite a few places around the world because of the saxophone.
That's brilliant. Like how something can just come up on the way and then become a part of, like, a major part of the journey ahead. So that's something to also learn from. There should be spontaneity to your life. I think people who choose music as a career do expect a certain amount of spontaneity to actually be there in their lives. And this is amazing. So I was actually going to ask you, like, when in the 15-year break or 14-year break, when did you actually, what made you pick up the saxophone? But then you told me just now that the whole antique.
And also, Jitesh, another thing to be noted is, like, till about 1995, it was a very static kind of, basically jobs were available only in the dances. If you're a band and well known, you would play in the dances maybe once or twice a month. Some weddings maybe once or twice a month. And then the hotels would be the main sustenance for musicians who wanted to make it a career. And it was not so exciting. But in 1995, there was a radical shift.
Right.
Because these IT companies and, software and, BPO and, biotech and all this foreign investments and FDIs and all that, you started getting the Western influence, American influence, which I think actually boosted the music economy to a great extent. So there was a lot of more gigs available, more pubs were there, and more companies wanted us to play in their whatever occasions and events. More recording happened because of the advance in technologies. More movies started happening, etc., etc., and it became a very vibrant economy. In fact, music became a standalone economy, especially with the event managers also, pitching for musicians and musical acts.
Yeah. It became a more active culture.
Yes.
There was more audience.
Yeah.
There were people who were willing to pay to watch good content.
Yes.
That is nice. And coming to content, I had reserved this question for later, but I'd rather ask you now as we are in the flow of something called content. So, well, now with ever reducing attention spans and music being used for the likes of basically, like for instance, when Instagram came up, I remember John Mayer mentioning in one of his tweets or something that now people have stopped thinking about songs when they are writing music. They're not writing a song, they're writing a 1-minute clip for Instagram. So those words kind of hit me deep, and I wanted to know your views on that as a person who has who has flourished in the era of no phones as a musician, when things just came up, and now to a point where like the attention spans of people have reduced to very minuscule a quantity, and people just are flicking through data just at the whim. So what are your thoughts on what's going on right now with music creation?
Yeah, like you're saying, John Mayer said what you quoted him, and Joe Walsh of the Eagles about 5 years ago, he said real music stopped happening 20 years ago. I mean, that he was like talking about even as earlier as 1997 and all that, when the trend had already set in for people to not really be musicians but making music. Music is being made by non-musicians. And nothing against DJ. I'm also a part-time DJ.
Oh.
I like to do house and that kind of thing, lounge and all that. Nothing against them.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, if you listen to many of the DJs, like you said, the attention span is like one chorus, one verse of a song, and then they change it, and then they go on. So you see, and if you don't do that, you'll get people from the crowd saying,
the repetition. Yeah.
That means go on to the next.
Yeah.
Even this thing, actually, what we understand as repetition, they say go on to the next. Okay. So, it's become such a small mind. And people are starting to get smaller minds.
Right.
Now, perhaps that is good in certain ways. I really don't know. It has helped me also because, like I was saying, I also do social service. And in that field, this is very good. But in terms of music and entertainment, unless you're there, how do you actually appreciate the finer points? For example, if I play a virtual show, people really cannot see my body language. But when I'm even in a small party and just take my sax and stand up and do this and that, there is this unconscious body language which is being exchanged, which cannot happen on the virtual thing. And etc., etc. There are many points, which goes against music creation, specifically for the purpose of broadcasting on virtual media.
Yeah. It is true. Because I was actually listening to the Music Makers podcast a while ago, and the person actually mentioned a very important point. They were like, when you're in a live gig, it's an experience, right? Which cannot be created again. But when now in the times of COVID and everything, especially, so what has happened is that people have come into the mentality of, oh, this show is going on live right now on the internet, but I can always rewatch it because it's going to be a saved video on Facebook, or it's going to be a saved live on Instagram. So the essence of the whole experience has actually been diminished to something that can be recreated. I personally love going to live shows and actually being with the artist, because when an artist is being vulnerable on stage and expressing their deepest emotions, it's something to behold, which cannot be transferred through a screen.
That's right. In fact, there's one of the lessons, prime lessons in event management, live event management, is that production and consumption happen simultaneously. So, therefore, a musician is very conscious. See, I'm doing a live show, so I need to practice, really get those things right and do the right thing and, do it the right way. And therefore, there is that much more depth in the music. Whereas, like you said, when they just, cut and paste and, do all
Yeah.
In fact, let me say, I've actually been with I can't name them really, but I've been with very top singers.
Okay.
From the Bollywood and, from local singers.
Right.
I've been on them. There's one particular guy. We are on stage in front of about 3 lakh people in this, the annual festival in this place, Hampi. And he comes on stage and he wants to sing one of his favorite songs that he sang in the local language, became a very big hit, but he couldn't sing it.
Okay.
So the music directors took the mic from him and sang the song. So,
the music director.
Yeah, the music director. So that was a very revealing moment for me, how everything is so... And they go on to win, Padma Shris and... well, that is the fact of life, So sometimes we rather accept rather than be resentful of these things. Because that's why I tell the youngsters, don't compare yourself with these people. Because there's a lot of fakery there,
There is. There is. In every genre, in fact.
Yes.
Not just music.
Yeah.
Like people will be looking at these blue waters of Instagrammers chilling, but like you don't know
whether it's a studio or... Yes, and then you get this lip syncing also.
Lip syncing.
In the year 1990 or something, one of these very big boy bands in the US.
Okay.
They were exposed because they were on stage, they were doing the lip sync, but one guy... he was little tipsy, he must have been high. So he went out.
Many have that way.
Yeah, so they've been exposed, you see. So that's been happening. But now it has reached a peak. Whereas, in those days you had to be genuine. But right now, there is more fakery than genuineness. In those days, there was more genuineness than fakery. But now fakery is the order of the day. So is it sustainable? The point is it sustainable? How long will you sustain a false character?
Exactly. So that is what we discussed in the last podcast as well. There's something called as the producer's curse. So sometimes the producer will give the band or the artist such a good song that it's really, really hard to replicate live. And then that is where you're caught.
Yes.
That is where, like, how do I even replicate this? The producer's curse, guys. All right. So I actually missed that you have also done a master's in psychotherapy and counselling.
That's right.
Now, you also mentioned to me earlier that you professionally do counselling for de-addiction, substance de-addiction and everything.
And mental health
and
issues.
mental health issues. So would you like to tell us about a little bit about this side of your work, and also if music therapy at all is relevant in these contexts?
Oh, yes, Jitesh. So the thing is, see, this lockdown, it changed the entire equation, right? Nobody wanted to actually risk going out, and you couldn't go out also. So what happened was people were stuck in their homes, all their fake characters started living with them, and a lot of them were so confused about who really they were. And what happens is, it is not a sustainable thing, this development of and maintenance of a false character. It bounds to it is bound to kind of upset, is create a disorder in your mind, your identity. So what happened was, I had finished my counseling courses and all that, and I was doing that pro bono basically, and all that. But this time in the lockdown, I first of all had a lot of requests for this de-addiction thing. A lot of people had stopped, but now they needed support to stay clean.
Okay.
And a lot of people, they were getting to be conscious of their mental health issues. It might have been there before. So, I was doing and it became such a thing that it actually became a silver lining.
Okay.
My entire self was being enriched because for 20 years I had done music. It was one long party from 1999 to 2020. It was like one never-ending party.
Yeah.
So therefore, what happened was I now was also faced with the crisis in the sense. I mean, I have a little. Thank God, I have a slightly spacious house. I have only my daughter and my aged mother were there, so we all were in our own spaces, trying to rebuild ourselves, re-recognize our real selves, etc. And I used to walk every day, counsel every day, play my music every day, so that it became a very, let's say, very very spiritual kind of
therapeutic in a way.
Yeah,
for your own self.
Yeah. And this I could transmit to others. See, what you don't have, you really cannot transmit.
Right. That's true. That's so true.
Yes.
And if you try, it gets worse.
Yes.
Yeah. So, where does music therapy in this
Music
picture?
therapy and art therapy are actually going to become very. See, psychotherapy is fine, but the moment you do psychotherapy, there's also the certain sense of stigma attached to it. So somewhere along the way, people might know that this man is or this woman has had psychotherapy, and therefore there's a certain amount of stigma attached to it. And at least in India, as far as I know, even studies by Nimmans and all that, and even AIMS show, and Banjara counseling also, all these studies show, which are based on scientific research methods, that it's not very acceptable. Either mental disorder or substance addictions are not accepted as a disease. It is seen as a weak person, as a person without willpower, etc., or a curse on the family or whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
So my life changed the more I started counseling people, and somewhere along the way, the music also came in.
Right.
So therapy and music became music therapy. And I also taught a little bit of meditation in sense, the thing is in music therapy, one of the first things I do is to ask people to close their eyes and say, what tune is playing in your head?
Oh, nice.
So if they're a person who has had any kind of musical influence, like I'll ask you now, can you close your eyes, Jeet, and tell me?
In my head, that the starting part of Perfect Weather.
Okay.
The saxophone part is fun, because we talked about it.
We talked about it, so that's
that
on
is
top
why
of the mind.
Yeah.
So someone who hasn't even heard music for 30 days, you ask them, there'll be something maybe from the childhood or some special occasion or very impacting occasion that will be in their mind. So music is there, ever present, So I'm trying to, get that to emerge and, look at it as an alternative and very viable, and I won't call it scientific, but valid therapy.
Okay. That is something. Because your current state of mind is very much, how do I say this? It's very apparent in probably the song that you really want to listen to or that's running through your head. I'm pretty sure, I know very little about music therapy, but I'm pretty sure there is a deep dive into it, which I would love to do someday. So that is pretty exciting grounds to touch. And all right, on that note, I would just like to ask you that you had mentioned earlier that music theory and training is a very important part of sustaining yourself as a musician in the ever-growing sphere of music technology and music itself. Like,
Yes.
as technology advances, there are so many ways to now create those sounds, and I know that, and everybody does too. The producers are now, see, there are so many packs in your DAW that will emulate piano, which will even compose piano parts and song structures for you. like AI enabled right there, right? All of that kept aside, and I know that the live essence of playing music is completely different. But I saw you mentioning earlier in our talks that if you need to sustain as a musician in a viable way, you must give a lot of importance to music theory and training. So I would just like to
Yes,
like for
yes,
you
yes,
to
yes.
elaborate that a little
My
bit.
you see, I always believed in this, but my beliefs were reinforced when you see, I also do a lot of music writing on music concerts, and I worked in a magazine called The Rave,
Okay.
and I also worked in this thing called Bangalore This Fortnight.
Okay.
I used to regularly write about music events, and especially the classical, Western classical, and now this very famous Russian violinist had come. She played and all that, and then when we interviewed her, she said, "There's a lot of talent in India, but what you need to do is box that talent, that creativity, through training and practice."
Okay.
So that was very valid. And so I've been saying that this was way back somewhere in 96 or 97. And she was so spot on with that, because no matter how much of talent I have, unless I have a underpinning,
Uh-huh.
theoretical underpinning,
Yeah.
how do I sustain it?
Right.
So learning some music theory, learning some composing theory, learning some vocal theory,
Yeah.
learning some instrumental theory, like in Hindustani classical music, they would call sazish. Instrument is different from voice.
Okay.
The saz
Right.
rather than the voice thing. So there are so many things like this, and in fact, musicology itself is a very deep subject.
Okay.
So, and ethnomusicology, there's so many various branches in music
Uh-huh.
that you can really go so far. The thing is, you need to sit down and mark it and say, this is what I'm going to do now.
Yeah. Like put a pin on it.
Yes.
Yeah. So the takeaway from this, I guess, for all you guys listening and watching this as young musicians, is that dive into your craft a little deeper and understand the theory of things. I know that there are a lot of tutorials available for any song that is on right now and like prevailing. And that is how even I started my journey in music playing. I would just go to ultimateguitar.com and then just learn everything that's possible. And I'm playing like Judas Priest solos and all of that. But there came a point when I sat down to compose music and I was like, what now? Now, I am going to sound like the band that I am inspired by. But then again, where do we draw the line? Where do I put in that me element? So creativity with the instrument, I believe, and I think you would too, is achieved when you really dive deep into the theoretic knowledge of music. When you, yeah, that's about it. I think when you dive into it. So that's
Yes,
that's the
the theory
takeaway
of
from
music.
here.
Yes, theory of music, training in music, and the practice of music makes you, develop your musicality rather than just that instrument or your, genre. Yeah, musicality is so important for sustaining. And the question also comes up: do you want to try and be a star, or do you want to be a musician?
Right.
Star might be a shooting star. We don't know. It might just burn out. But a musician can actually, like, I'm witness to that. I know a lot of people who have done that.
Yeah.
I know a lot of, and even in our Hindi and all these Tamil and all over India, you find musical composers who've been there for ages,
Uh-huh.
So it is sustainable. But you need family support, you need friend support, you need theory, training, and practice.
And like a good amount of, like a good place in your mind. You need to be mentally strong to pursue this journey, which brings me to my next point, which I really wanted to discuss with you. Now there is so much of like, you will go online and one will go online and they will see 1,000 better guitarists, 1,000 better producers and singers and musicians than them. And there is this immense sense of like the fear of missing out, like, oh, I wish I had started earlier. Oh my God, look at that 14-year-old guitarist play great riffs, and now I'm 30. What has become of my life? I believe that I asked that question very relevantly to you, for instance. Is that because, specifically to you, because, back in the day, you did not go home and sit on Instagram.
Yeah.
But now one does that, and some people are looking at content very with that view, like, okay, all right, good content. But on a dark day, you can really put yourself down looking at all of those people who are better than you. So, what advice do you have for the youngsters, the budding musicians of today, in this sense?
In this
whole
context, I have two, I would say, hard-won experiences that I won't say advice really, because nobody likes to take advice. Advice is free, because I'm not contradicting you, but that's the nature of
I
advice.
understand.
Two, let's say, core understandings from my own hard-won experience. The first thing is, don't compare yourself. How many gurujis are telling us this?
Yeah.
If you want peace of mind, don't compare yourself. Okay. Don't look at them and say, or look at somebody who's not so good and say, hey, I'm much better than this guy. So it's a seesaw, That's the first thing. Second thing, which comes from my business management theory, is analyze your own strengths. In the sense, what have you done till now in music? Like Jitesh, how many years have you been in music, been playing?
Yeah, so I've been playing since I was 16. I got into music and now I'm 30. So
14 years.
14 years.
Yeah. So next time you get that thought, what you're looking at some 14-year-old, maybe it's all engineered, or maybe he's actually taken.
No, they are. Let's per se that they are actually
playing that. Yes. Okay, they might actually be playing that. But let's also understand what they had to sacrifice to do that. Maybe they had the facility to do that. Maybe they had that kind of talent which they were able to. Now, the point is this. How long have they been doing? Are they able to sustain that sort of thing? First thing. And now what am I? Basically, what am I? For the 14 years of my playing as Jitesh, okay, maybe I'm not playing exactly those riffs and all, but let me see what I have done.
Yeah.
So analyze your own strengths.
Yeah.
So this is the thing, once you start analyzing your own strengths, you can start building upon it and, profile those strengths. See, because as a musician, you can't be everything to everybody.
Exactly. That is a very, very valid point.
Yeah.
So you do not want to be everything to everybody. You do not want to please everybody.
Yes.
Radiohead cannot do a Jagrata.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yes.
They would fail miserably.
Yeah. In fact, I'm taking Bryan Adams' name here. I hope Bryan Adams in any way or his fans are not offended by this. But I remember the time he played for Sri Sri Ravi Shankar's concert and all that.
Okay,
and he was staying in the West End Hotel. At that time, I was playing jazz music in the West End Hotel. And then there was the next section in West End was this poolside. There was a small two-piece band. And after my set, we were invited to meet Bryan. So we just sat there patiently on a table and had our eatables, me and the female singer. And Bryan, suddenly when he heard Sultans of Swing, he went there and took the mic and tried to sing Sultans of Swing. He couldn't. So, and then he said, man, I can't do it. So you see, everybody's got their own strengths and focus. It's basically someone is so focused on something else.
Yeah.
So that's why the analyzing your own strengths is the way forward, I think.
Yeah. So being self-aware,
knowing
your strengths, knowing your weaknesses and working on them is probably a good idea to do that. Now, like you said initially, that probably don't get influenced by that. I think that, like you said, like a lot of gurujis are saying that don't compare yourself. But the thing is that it is harder done.
But it comes with practice.
It does.
Let me assure you.
Okay.
It's just like you take when you compose this wonderful song, Perfect Weather, you might have really seen so many bottlenecks along the way. Oh, what's it? Stopped, then starts.
True.
But as you kept practicing it and investing yourself into it, those bottlenecks disappeared and you came out with a beautiful composition, which I think should really be out there, millions of views kind of thing.
Thank you. I mean,
having said that, same thing with your not comparing or not taking things, don't internalize everything. Someone is doing that fine. It used to happen to me.
That's the attitude we need. That's the attitude we need. We need to look at what's happening. We need to analyze our weaknesses, strengths.
Yes.
We need to be self-aware as musicians, and it's an ever-growing thing.
And like you said, as musicians, You said it, but not exactly that.
Okay.
As musicians, we need to be aware of our strengths and our weaknesses, which makes us humble.
Which makes you humble.
Humility is such an ideal state of mind to be in, because like there's an old saying from, I think, Vedas or something, one of the old Indian sayings says, a man who's humble can never be humiliated. But if you are not humble and you are humiliated, you can never become humble, because you will be resentful. Same thing. Have you seen some musicians? They come up on stage and just one person in that audience say, "Hey man, this is not good," or something like that, and the entire evening is gone.
Yeah, it's a bad vibe then.
Bad vibe,
right after that.
Yes, maybe they were not being humble. So that quality of humility. Like take a guy like A.R. Rahman, or one of these people, who have achieved like loads and loads. But when you actually look at them, the way they speak, they're so humble about.
Yeah.
Like as if they're not even trying to own that entire thing. They're saying
Yes.
it just happened because the grace of God, or, the producers were good, or, all of this, etc., etc., etc.
Not very proud beings in that sense.
Yeah. Not arrogant.
Artists, whether musicians or not, or the best of the people who I've met in my whole life have been like humble with what they're doing. The arrogance really doesn't slip in, or it doesn't fit. It doesn't seem fitting. A lot of talented people aren't like that, and I've seen them probably meet very weird ends, and
Yes.
doesn't end well. So that's what sustainability.
That would be a valid lifestyle in those days. Like, you had the three J's, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and our man. He died drowning. Jim Morrison. Okay.
Jim Morrison, of course.
Yeah,
And
all
then,
27s, and they were
yeah,
gone.
all
But they were like wild people. I mean,
of course, terrific personalities.
yes, they
and,
were like great crowd pullers, everything. They were known to millions loved them. But somewhere, I'm not being critical. I'm nobody to judge that. But I don't think they were very humble people in the sense, their talents made them think that they are much above the human race. That sort of thing, Whereas nowadays you find, one of the greatest violinists is Isaac Perlman,
Okay.
and even the great Yehudi Menon. They are such humble people. I mean, you just think, my God, this man does all that, but when you talk to them one-on-one, in fact, in my interviewing days, when I used to write interviews for these magazines, 2-3 magazines, I used to meet these musicians like Dizzy Gillespie and, these famous violinists, famous pianists, cellists, etc., etc. They would have spent hundreds of hours training, getting coached and performing and all of that, thousands of hours perhaps, and reached real heights. But when you talk to them one-on-one, they were just being a human being. And that's thankful that they were in the right place at the right time with the right talent.
That's beautiful, right? That's so amazing.
Yeah.
So that just shows that they love their craft above their own identity.
Yes.
Like this, there's some, you must have studied in psychology, the super ego.
Yes.
And the ego, super ego.
Yeah.
And then like what comes after that, I'm unaware. But yeah, there are types of egos, right?
Yes.
So like just
the unconscious, subconscious.
Yeah.
You get the subconscious, then you get the unconscious, then you get the id, which is the drives.
The id, exactly.
Then you get the ego, which is the thinking part of your mind, which says, this is right, I don't want to do this, I want to do this, this sort of thing. The super ego, which is your conditioning and, or your brainwashing, whatever you want to call it. We say, this is right, that is wrong. Mm-hmm. So, you're a good boy, or you're doing something bad.
Yeah.
That very judgmental voice right there is known as super ego. Nowadays we start calling it conscience, and because there is a part inside of us which knows what is true, which is not.
Yeah, that is true.
And all these drugs and this artificiality and all of that is only an attempt to cover up the truth of what we really are.
It's a method of running away.
Yes.
It has for the longest time been. I have experienced that in parts of my life, and it has been truly that. And I think the takeaway from this is that just be real, man. And just be real. And I know it's not easy, but the whole thing about it is the love for your craft is going to take you forward. Not like...
No, that said, of course, see, you're a very original musician, but now supposing I'm doing... on my sax, I'm playing a song like, Rajesh Khanna's Gulabi Aankhein.
Yeah.
Now, somewhere along the line, I should be able to picturize that to get the effect on the sax,
Yeah.
But I'm not being a false character because I'm the one actually playing it. I'm the one emoting that.
True.
But I'm not trying to be Rajesh Khanna there.
Yeah, of course. That's artistic expression.
Expression.
And you're recreating something.
Recreating something. So that's the thing. But I've seen guys actually trying to be like Rajesh Khanna or trying to be like Mohammad Rafi or trying to be like Brian Adams. Why?
Yeah.
We don't know the price what they paid. No, do you want to pay that price?
I guess it's the whole thing where you said it's your decision. Do you want to be a star?
Yeah.
Or do you want to be a musician?
Yeah.
When I started my journey in music, I used to imitate every singer that I would cross paths.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I discovered Nirvana.
Yes.
Then I would start imitating Kurt Cobain. In the sense of when I'm singing his songs.
Yes.
I was not writing songs very primarily then.
Yeah.
But when I would cover a Kurt Cobain song, I would cover it like that, which was very amusing for the audience. But then I also thought that that character started to sink into my life as well. And then I started pursuing other singers like that. And then I would, for a while, I would be that guy. You know what I mean?
I mean, if you are an actor, perhaps that would have been known as method acting. It's very good.
Probably.
But this is known as channeling.
Yeah. That happens.
Yes.
And that is, I don't know, it's bittersweet. It's good and bad.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say here is that on a deeper level, now when I cover somebody's song, I try to, in musicality, when you bring this to musicality, I remember I had a college senior and I was very arrogant. So at that time he told me, why don't you cover the song in your own way? And I was like, just because you can't do it doesn't mean other people can't. I can nail that voice and you can't. But many years down the line, I actually understood that covering a song is to make your own rendition of it.
Yes.
Not to just imitate that.
That is why the music of jazz
Yeah.
allows you that freedom.
That's true as well.
But I find these people are like sticklers, for like locally, supposing you sang a Hindi song, they want you to sing exactly like that. Otherwise it's not good. Yeah. But you have to tell those people, I don't care what you think.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm going to do it the way I like to do it.
Exactly.
You just got to push those people away and say, stay away, buddy. It's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Because I've seen people who do that, they just stagnate. They stay there in the same circle, doing the same thing, taking the same books, looking the same thing, playing the same musicians. Come on. If maybe their personality is suited for that sort of thing, but what is your personality suited for?
Yeah.
That is why that question, who am I and how do I want my music to be and what do I want to do with it?
Yeah.
See, because music can be for entertainment, music can be, like you said, a therapy, music can be an ambient source.
Yeah, just music.
Yeah.
Music
can be a message.
Can be.
There are so many things. What is like, from a very management perspective, let's say, music is a fundamental need. Everybody needs to hear music.
Yeah.
Even the people who say, I don't want to hear music, somewhere along the line, they open their ears, okay? So in such a big field, what is going to be my basic function there?
Right.
Me, Raman Sax Man, is basically an entertainer. I've also been known as a corporate entertainer, party entertainer, etc. I'm okay with that.
Right.
So each one has to find, who am I? Who am I basically? I need to be able to answer that question every day. And it's not a once and for all, I just take a book and I write 20 pages, who am I, this, and that's over. It's not like that. Yes.
It's a journey.
It's a journey, yes. Because we all keep changing. We have different aspects to ourselves which will emerge as we grow older, play with more musicians, play different genres of music, and especially listening to different kinds of music, which is real. I'm not talking about the fake music that is there, and not all those things. Sometimes maybe even fake music can help me to realize the value of genuine music.
Right.
But as a listening thing, I listen. Now I am so happy to tell you that I've started listening to cassettes that I collected, back in the day. I'm putting it in my record.
That is so comforting, right? In a way, that's
yes.
beautiful.
Yes.
So I guess the takeaway from that is that also to add that when you say, you remember you mentioned that, when you're doing a rendition, you're asking yourself, like, like, how am I supposed to cover this instead of blatantly going ahead and
Yes.
copying someone? I think that comes with time, because in my life, it came to me with time.
Yes.
It took me a lot of time to get out of that place where I just wanted to show off that I'm skilled versus making the best use of my skill to deliver the right emotion to the music that
Yeah.
I'm playing, to deliver the right, to just nudge. You just need someone to nudge you in the right direction. The sooner that happens, the better. Like for me, it was just, I took my own time. I realized that my love for music is beyond showing off. I worked a corporate job for 1.5 years, and I really missed music in that time. I used to look at my, like, I bought a MIDI keyboard and my laptop, and I was like, morning while leaving work, I'd be just like, I miss this so bad, and that made me humble. And yeah, I guess it's a journey for everybody.
That's right. Like, what you're saying reminds me of one very old definition of music. Music is nothing but thoughts and feelings organized into words and time and tune.
I'll repeat that when I play the podcast
Yeah.
in slow motion, because you got to think about this. Can you
Yes.
say that again?
Music is giving expression to your thoughts and feelings through words, notes, and time.
That says it all, basically. I'm glad I heard that.
Thank you. Welcome. Yes.
Right. I know I have put you in this hot box for a really long time.
Right.
But
Yes.
we're almost approaching the end. So just a few more questions. And would you like to say a few words about your musical time, the musical journey outside of India?
Yeah,
As
outside of India, I played like for quite some time in England, Scotland, and that was a nice experience.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, I somehow came into contact with ISKCON. So there's a lot of concerts for them and all that they used to happen. And suddenly someone will come and say, hey, you know who that guy is? Someone who's become a sannyasi in ISKCON. And that would be some very big rock star who's given that life up and come to the...
Right.
Or take a guy like Jeremy Spencer. He was the front man and guitar player and singer for Fleetwood Mac for a few years till they became famous. Then one day he just bolted and said, I don't want that life. He says God of his understanding called him to, and said, leave that thing and come. So, like this, I meet a lot of people. And then I've toured in Nepal a bit.
Okay.
And also in Dubai, Muscat, then this Colombo.
Okay.
I was in Colombo for some time, then Malaysia, Vietnam. Now I'm hoping to go to the States because some friends of mine are forming a band and they want me to be part of it. So, you never know what's going to come up. As long as you live in the open question.
Yeah.
See, being too set about goals, like by this end of the month, by the end of April, I want to do 30 shows. No, how is it? I mean, are you compromising yourself in so many ways, or are you overworking yourself? It's not right. Rather than that, I will be ready to do as many shows as I come, and try to align myself to the musicians, to the conditions, etc., and try to make each show. In each show, I will do my best.
Right.
Sometimes the sound is not good. Sometimes I've had about 5-6%, maybe 10% times people are talking and enjoying the drink. So I get more ambient. See, the thing is to be a little resilient and adaptive,
Yeah, malleable.
Yeah, malleable.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're paying me. And I made, I don't want to boast, but I made a few crores on music.
Nice. That's
Yes.
that's a very positive attitude.
Yeah.
The thing you mentioned about being having to be malleable.
Malleable, yes.
Also, like, suddenly you're on stage, something's not working. You don't have to lose your composure.
Yes.
You don't have to lose your calm. You just got to be like, okay, I can handle this.
Yes.
So I was saying, yeah, this is a field. Music, being a musician, is truly a field which tests your patience. First of all, makes you a calmer, more humble person as long as you follow the journey through. Which brings me to my one of the questions, which will probably be a takeaway for everybody listening and watching. So this question is elaborate. As generations pass and the music scene takes new shapes and forms, many musicians fear that they may become irrelevant with time. What is your take on how a musician can remain relevant through the decades? Having gigs at all times.
Yeah.
Having that, more importantly, having that sanity.
Yes.
And keeping that whole aspects of having healthy relationships and
having a life to live.
Yes. Like the rock star days are over. Nobody wants to get drunk and die. And I mean, I get it. But I think that whole glam era is over. Now people want to focus on their mental health, their human relationships while maintaining a good career, being fit. So how does one remain musically relevant and keep sane through the decades?
I think once again that I would say the main thing is to be humble first. We don't have it figured, or you have it all figured. The first thing. Second thing is, it's just like, you might have seen in the industrial world, there were very big companies that collapsed. They collapsed because they were not willing to change their outlook. They were more production based, technology based and all that. But when the technology, in today's world, what is valid today, in 3 months down the line, it's off, and they went because they couldn't be adaptive. They couldn't adapt. They couldn't innovate. Same thing, I think, for musicians also. We need to be innovative. It's not so much about creativity, but innovativeness is so important. You need to innovate according to the circumstances. Second thing is, you need to really analyze your own strengths and see which target group of people will be most accepting and demanding of this.
Yeah.
We need to create a demand, for our services.
Identify your audience.
Yeah, identify an audience.
And grow with the trends.
And earn goodwill.
Yeah.
See, I'm very glad to say that out of the 4,000 shows, only one show I missed.
Yeah.
And even that show, when he phoned me and said, "Where are you?" So it's already 6. I got a shock because I'd forgotten. I did not noted. But anyway, I jumped into my car and I went. It was 7:30 just to tell him that I have not taken another show and played.
Yeah.
So this goodwill is so important.
That is very, very true. I think that's a big takeaway.
Yeah.
Or being a man of your word is really, really important in this industry because it's not streamlined at all.
Yes.
Whatever you are is your goodwill that you have earned through the ages. So being humble, being more malleable towards what's happening.
Yes, and knowing your strengths.
Rather
than your weaknesses. Yes, weaknesses are there that everybody knows. But strengths, we should go by the strengths. So, okay, I have this thing. Now, they want me to sing like so-and-so, or they want me to play the sax like the yakety sax. That's not my forte at all.
Uh-huh.
So I can tell them, can I offer you something alternative? I'm just saying as a example.
Yeah. Instead of just saying no.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can work
try
on your
to
other strengths.
Communicate, negotiate.
That's true.
These things. And third thing, of course, would be also to be grounded in a supportive system.
Okay.
Like other musicians, your family, maybe even a lawyer, a doctor, a counselor, a spiritual guru, whatever. We need this. We need all these things too. We need all these underpinnings. People to underpin our efforts.
Yeah. That is something. Thank you for that. So, is there anything else that you would like to add before we call it a day?
I mean, there's just one thing, very old wisdom. We need to also learn to live just for today.
Okay.
I know it sounds very...
It does sound
very yucky and in a sense, what do you mean? But when you actually analyze it, do you have tomorrow? You can plan for tomorrow.
Probably.
Yesterday that's gone. Can you actually bring it back?
Nope.
So just for today, there is one Sanskrit proverb, when you translate it, the last few lines are like this. Yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day.
That's motivating. That's beautiful. In a very valid context of living for today, well, sometimes I have so much work pressure.
Yes.
And I have procrastinated for so long that I don't know which project to start working on. And then the thoughts of getting project cancellations and the thoughts of clients getting mad at me just puts me really into a pit. And at that time, the only thought that can actually pull me out is like, okay, bro, one thing at a time. I can make the best of today and think
Yes.
about tomorrow.
Yes.
That's one thing that really keeps me going, because
Yes.
you know this scene. Being a producer,
Yeah.
being a musician, sometimes, I mean, we're lucky to have a lot of work. Like,
Yes.
that's a great thing on
Yes.
one note, but sometimes you just get stuck with so much work that you don't know what to do. And in those times, I think
Yes.
your advice really stays relevant. Like, think about one step at a time,
And prioritize what is more
prioritize
important.
what's more important. Beautiful. So, with that, Mr. Raman, I would like to thank you again for doing this, for taking the time to actually educate us on a lot of things. I'm pretty sure a lot of viewers will benefit from your knowledge, your experiences, and this was very wholesome in more than just musical ways. Would you like to play a little something for us on the saxophone?
Yes, certainly.
Yeah,
Certainly.
before
Yes.
we close.
Yes. Okay.
I'll give you a backing guitar support.
Yeah.
if
Okay.
that's fine.
What key was that in?
We can do this in A major 7.
Okay.
A major.
Okay.
3, 4. Thank you. Awesome.
Most welcome, man.
I hope you guys enjoyed. Do subscribe to the channel if you like this content and would want more of such things coming your way. Good night then.